Hi everyone, delighted on this episode to be having a second slash third conversation with comics creator author J. Robert Deans. Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Hey Jason, how are you?
I'm good. I'm saying it's kind of a third conversation because you've been here for an episode, but then we also had a lovely chat at Heroes Con last weekend as well.
Yeah, that was a nice time, and it was good to meet you in person finally
Yes,
after our meet at the previous show. So thank you again for having me on. Thank you for having me on again, I should say, and it's good to
absolutely.
see you again. So how was your Heroes?
It was a great Heroes. It was a great Heroes. It's always busy. I walk my legs off, and sometimes I feel like I'm just walking in circles. And then I get home and I'm like, how did I not stop at that table? How
Right.
did I not know they were right behind me while I was talking to this other person? But came away with some good things, including the honey don't
Hey,
case. There it is. Yeah.
I know
And
that book.
zoom, it disappears. It comes back. You know that one. Yeah, yeah. So ripe for the reading and adding it to a classroom library somewhere near you sometime
Excellent.
very soon.
Well, I hope
Uh
you and the kids both enjoy it.
yes, yes, absolutely. Uh really enjoyed digging through it. And I know that you have another book in this series on the way as well. And I also mentioned that you have, of course, Hippopotamus. We talked about
Yes.
Hippopotamus the last time. And you co-create with Sam Kidlet. Did I get that
Yes.
name correct? Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
We call her the kidlet because there was an issue when she was first born where the photos I was sharing with her ended up in not so nice places on the internet. So I
Ah,
immediately
mhm.
scrubbed everything and only referred to her as the kidlet from then on. So,
You
and that
have to
just
be so
stuck.
careful these days. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, she's almost 20 now. So it was a long time ago, but it was still a bit of a shock.
Yeah. Well, and great to meet Sam at the show as well.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, she's taking some time off from work and school and everything for the next few weeks. So we may have another Hippopotamus book coming out for Baltimore or maybe for next Heroes. So
Great, great.
yeah.
So it sounds like Baltimore's on the way as well as it sounds like Heroes is a go-to for you.
Oh yeah, those are the two we try and do every year.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I'm curious about the inspiration, the backstory behind the new Bear from Aunt adventure, and I know that this is a personal book for you, that there's a meaningful sort of piece behind this as well.
Yeah, generally the Bear from Ant series it actually started as a gag because when she was 8, Sam wanted to watch the James Bond movies.
Hmm.
I was like,
Hmm.
maybe not ready for those. So I created a spy series for her um, based on the Man from Uncle TV series I had
Mm.
watched when I was a
Hmm.
kid and had thoroughly enjoyed. And at the time I was writing the book, the Cavill film came out based on the same series. And I had actually done a picture for my wife. One of our favorite films is The Hunt for Red October. And if you
Hmm.
know that film, the opening scene is Alec Baldwin getting ready to fly from London to the United States, and he closes his laptop, and there's his daughter, and she's holding her teddy bear, which is a koala. And so I drew this gag card thing for my wife of the koala in Baldwin's uniform, naval uniform,
Hmm.
and drew it as the Hunt for Red October.
Nice. Nice.
Puns.
Yes.
And but I drew that like a year before my daughter had said I want to watch the James Bond movies, and that idea, that goofy thing I had drawn for my wife, just kind of stuck in my head. And when Sam said I want to watch these movies, I was like, well, I'll write you a spy adventure, and I just took Stanley, the name of the bear from the movie, and wrote the Honey Don't case. Instead of James Bond, I made it the Man from Uncle, Napoleon Solo, and it's Stanley. And I even and the head of ANT, the Animal United Network Task Force, is a lion after Leo G. Carroll from the TV series. And it just I filled it with movie references for my wife who edits my books. She used to edit stuff for the Library of Congress, So I have
Wow.
a good editor in
Hmm.
house,
Hmm.
and all these goofy things. And my kid loved it. And it's, so I did 5 books over time. And after the 5th book, which actually was a fundraiser for the recent wildfires in Australia that decimated the koala population to the point that it went from thriving to endangered in a
Hmm.
matter of weeks. I was rereading the first one and realized this is not my best work. And I'm years on from as a writer. So I started to redo these. And the paperback you have is a much better version of that original story. I took out a lot of the goofy stuff that I had put in for my wife's reading sake, and actually it made it a much better story. So I've been redoing all these books. And the most recent one, which is out June 25th, I believe, is a Tuesday,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
is called The Case of the Caterpillar Driver, and it's essentially Tyler's story. Now, Tyler is Stanley's driver. He's his pilot. He's part of his team, and he's the one that gets Stanley to wherever he needs to go in the world to do his spy stuff. The logic being, if Stanley has to drive himself everywhere like James Bond does, he's not studying for the case.
Hmm. Hmm.
So he's got a driver, and that's Tyler. And sometimes Tyler even gets to work on the cases too, because like he's a little kid, he keeps asking, "When can I work on a case? When can I work on a case? When can I work on a case?" And in the previous book, he actually got to work on a case. It was a Formula One case, which Tyler, being a driver, loves Formula One. And I write him as very much a sort of excitable teenager, who has potential, but he's not quite there yet. And in this book, Tyler, being a caterpillar, is transitioning, and I use that term very specifically, is transitioning into a butterfly.
Hmm.
And he's kind of nervous about it. He's not sure what's going to happen. And he resigns from A.U.N.T because he's not sure what he's going to come out of the cocoon as. And he's nervous, and he's just kind of worried about his future. And I write all of these things in Tyler for the young kids that are out there who are either LGBTQ and they're not sure about their future, or
Hmm.
kids are being bullied and they just feel different, or kids that are having problems, who may be older kids, but they're at work, they're at school, they're at home, and just they don't feel included, or they don't feel like they fit, or whatever is going on, they just feel ostracized or alone.
Yeah.
And I felt that as a kid, because when my folks split up, it was just like, that's when my folks split up. That's when I got it. I felt, and my depression started.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I've been battling that depression for 40 years now. And it's a rough thing to deal with when you're a kid. And there are a lot more kids out there that have that kind of thing going on than we want to admit, or that we realize is going on. Now, today, more kids are getting the help they need. But the further you get into the core of the country, you're dealing with, how can I say this delicately, an agenda that doesn't want to address or wants to do away with a certain group of kids
Hmm. Hmm.
who feel uncomfortable in their own bodies
Yeah.
or in their own head. And when I was doing some research for this, the largest group of suicide rates for teens is the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
And, that's just, there shouldn't be a statistic for teen suicide like that. You know,
Yeah.
there shouldn't be, the fact that we have those kind of statistics for suicide in general just is awful.
Yeah.
And that's just coming from a humanitarian point of view. It doesn't have to be, sad for anything, but other than just there shouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I sort of wrote some of these themes into Tyler. Um, I don't necessarily write him as an LGBTQ character or as anything other than just Tyler from the books, but I use some of the stuff that he's going through to sort of address those things that kids go through. And I use the transition of caterpillar to butterfly specifically. And if you look at the cover, I choose the colors for his wings very specifically. They are black, pink, and blue for the flag of the Allies. And I hope that that at least shows, that I'm not trying to sort of, stick myself up on a pedestal and say that this is the guide or anything like that. It's just because I'm an old, hetero white dude. I'm the
Right,
last
right.
person who should be saying anything about this, but I at least come from a perspective of I have the depression, and I've been in this situation of being in the corner, not knowing where my future is.
Hmm.
So I can sort of speak to it, and I just hope that some kid will read this and understand that there's a way to sort of get yourself out of it.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
use ant as the found family metaphor.
yeah.
So that's essentially where where I wanted the book to go. And there are several times when it's really just Stanley and Tyler talking. And my wife insists that it's essentially me now talking to me as a kid.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Um, and that may be true. It's essentially just me trying to say to any child who would read this, who's feeling like that, you will find your way. You just have to make sure you find the people that will accept you regardless. They
Yeah,
may not be your family. They may not be the friends you have now. They may be people you don't realize are there for you. But just make sure that the people that have your back do have your back, and they're not just saying they have your back. Because to get slightly spoilery, two of the people that are the most cruel to Tyler in this book are family members.
hmm, hmm.
So it's, you know, so and the transition takes place fairly early in the book, and it's everything that happens to him after the fact, and it's who is taking care of him afterwards, who is, having fun with him afterwards, and what happens to him afterwards that really sort of sets the tone.
Oh, yeah.
And him growing into himself, becoming his true self after the fact. That and the big sort of twist is that there is a hate group of insects that don't like insects changing into other insects that
Hmm.
kidnap him, and and how an ant goes out to save him. And that's as far as I want to say, because I want people to be able to read it and understand what happens with Tyler. And it's that growth that Tyler goes through in those last 20 pages or so. Um, it's a lot, maybe for a really young kid, but it's all about, who does Tyler get saved by his friends, or what exactly happens to help him grow.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's a lot.
That makes sense though, and I like that you have a character that is relatable in so many ways, whether it's a reader from the LGBTQ community or a reader who's just sort of, kind of on the outskirts, figuring themselves out, not necessarily readily accepted, because a lot of people, a lot of young people go through experiences like that.
Yeah. It and the reason I've sort of focused on the LGBTQ community is that at the moment they are the most ostracized is not the right word, but persecuted right
Hmm.
now. And this being an election year and seeing what's going on, um, you know, I right now it's like anybody that's not a white person has got to feel some measure of fear
Right,
for
right.
how this election is going to play out.
Yeah.
It's and yeah, I'm wearing my politics on my sleeve for that, but it's, I can't see it any other way. I mean, hell, I'm scared.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and as you and I have talked, it shouldn't be that difficult to be kind to people, and it really kindness shouldn't be a political issue.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And someone's safety
Yeah.
should not be a political issue
Yeah.
across the board.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But I also appreciate what you were saying about the way you've built the story. You have this group of insects who are promoting hate, and just that idea of this weird thing we do where we break ourselves up into factions and, I mean, build community within communities by disliking other communities. It's a strange phenomenon,
it
very
really
strange.
is. Yeah. It's funny because I keep being in the comic community. We keep seeing these groups that are formed because, they just want to complain about the latest Batman storyline
Right, right.
or something like that. And it's just like, we're in,
Right.
we're in a convention center that we should be so lucky that we're able to hang out together as comic book fans, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Because it's like, 20 years ago, we were the weirdos.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
now our movies are making, well, everybody but us, billions of dollars.
Yeah.
um,
The strange thing I reflect on sometimes about that too is people that get upset about maybe there's a character who's LGBTQ in a popular storyline. But then I think, do we even have continuity at this point in any way? I mean, how many times have timelines been reset, rebooted, uh,
right.
and we get upset with the inclusion of a particular character who, let's face it, it's a really big deal when you have a character that represents something about who you are in a book.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a straight white middle-aged cis hetero guy, I don't have trouble finding those representations
Yeah.
at all, and never have. But
Especially when there's so many characters to choose from.
right,
You know, my
yeah,
favorite character in comics has always been Iceman.
yeah,
And, oh, he's gay now. All right. He's still cool.
yeah, literally,
Yeah, exactly. Which is one of the reasons I loved him, because it's like I grew up in the South where it's sticky every day.
yeah,
And wouldn't it be great to just sit there and pour ice creams over yourself? Sexuality had nothing to do with that.
yeah, yeah. Just the cool factor, just the
Yeah,
cool factor.
exactly.
So you use animals, you use kind of these imaginary settings and situations, and one of the things I also appreciate about that is it's kind of like science fiction or parables or whatever kind of storytelling technique that you want to use. It's stepped away from reality enough that you can comment on life, and you
Yeah,
also have a range of people that can relate to it in different ways.
yeah. It's the Star Trek
Hmm.
thing, where he could tell stories he wanted to with science fiction that he couldn't with, like the Lieutenant, which is a story, the show he did just before Star Trek. He being Roddenberry.
Hmm. Hmm.
Animals, you can actually you can tell a whole lot more with animals than you can with humans.
Hmm.
Um, uh, and if you're subtle about it, you can actually make a whole lot of commentary depending on which animal you choose for which storyline.
Yeah, sure.
If I insert a Black Panther into a story, there's a whole lot you can read into that. You
Hmm.
um, no one. The funny thing is, no one has questioned the fact that in the Bear from Ant series, his partner, his off and on partner, in the Ilya Kulyakin role, is a Russian panda bear,
Hmm. Hmm.
as opposed to a black bear or something like that. Um, and his other partner is a penguin, but that's for a different story. And it's like, and one person has actually gone, hang on, wait a minute, the ants cover operation is not a, in the TV series, their cover operation was a tailor shop.
Hmm. Hmm.
In mine, their cover operation is a barbecue restaurant. And
Right.
someone finally said, wait, you have pigs in your story? Yeah, it's a barbecue restaurant. Yeah, they eat salads.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And he was just like, he just walked away. But it was like, little things like that I throw in just to see who's paying attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but there are a lot of metaphors you can use with those animals, and and also there are visual things you can do that you can't do with humans sometimes. But also it was just sort of a natural progression because I was doing the Shakes picture books
Hmm.
before I started doing this, and it was just like, well, I'm already drawing, cows and penguins. What's a koala?
Yeah.
You know, and it eventually just sort of bit me in the butt because with the second book and the bear series, glaciers were popping up in places they shouldn't, including the equator. So this was going to involve being on the ocean. So he needed a partner that wasn't a bear. So he needed a penguin. Well, why not just pull in Percy from the Shakes books? And oh my God, I've created a shared universe. I'm an idiot.
There you go.
And so now everything it revolves around the same area. And I went ahead and called it Grand Punwick, which is why the URL is Grand Punwick. And it's like now I'm just locked in. But the animals just make it more fun because I can also, I can ask my fans, what's your favorite animal? And they just kind of look at me funny. I'm like, oh, you never know when you might be written into a book.
Nice. Nice.
And then I don't have to worry about likenesses, which
That's
I'm
true.
still not great at. I can draw, like if your favorite animal were a dog, fine,
Hmm.
breed. That's a lot easier for me to draw than an actual, Jason the Heart.
Yes.
Like that.
And you could even have a bearded animal. So that
Exactly.
there you
So
go.
it's, um, but it just, and so it's a lot of it is just the ability to tell stories that you can't do with humans because the kids will sort of pick up on it a lot faster than you think they will.
Hmm.
um, but it's subtle, and then just the fact that animals are a lot more fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think sort of it's the Star Trek factor and the Scooby Doo factor.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
until you draw yourself into a corner, then it's ruh-roh.
I was going to ask about the drawings because you have particular moments in the story. You've got prose there, but then you've got these illustrations that go with them. So how do you decide the moments that you want to put into illustrative form?
Panic. No.
Yes. Oh,
Um,
so always a motivator. Yes.
yeah, it's the idea behind the Bear books is they are sort of transition books for third to fifth graders. Um, so they're in that age where they've read graphic novels, but they're being given a little bit of a nudge to read something other than just a graphic novel. So I wanted it to be illustrated fiction. And so what I try
Hmm.
to do is every 3 to 4 pages of prose, they get at least one illustration. And what I in the older books, I would just draw what little illustrations I wanted to draw and just plug it in. And that became a formatting nightmare.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so when I started to redo the books, I thought, all right, full page illustrations, again, 3 to 4 pages, full page illustration. I changed the format so that and there's a thing in the beginning of the book saying we producers would like to thank Stanley for access to his sketchbooks. It's sort
Hmm.
of a fun little thing for the readers. And so I do them digitally, but I do it like it's a sketchbook thing where you've got a crayon and then a pen and then a pencil and it's all there, like it's from his actual sketchbook, which kind of makes it weird when I actually draw Stanley into the image, but then it's neither here nor there. And it's just a matter of sometimes it's just basic drawings like, oh, here's Percy coming into the story here. So let's draw Percy walking into the lab. And other times this is going to look really funny. This I need to draw.
Yeah.
And then there's times when it's, I've got two images. One is more serious. One is going to be more funny. What do I do? And then that's when it becomes a formatting problem. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll draw both, but I'll make sure there's a page of prose in between.
Hmm.
But in the end of the book, like for example, in the end of Caterpillar Drive, there's a point where I actually did a double page spread, which I've not yet done for the Bear series.
Nice.
But it's an
Nice.
important moment. And it's a fight scene per se, but it's an important moment because it follows a big moment for Tyler.
Hmm.
He's
Hmm.
like, okay, I need to draw the big moment, but there's also this, which is sort of satisfying, and then there's this. So I need to draw all three, and just I'll play with the formatting. But then earlier in the book, there's a moment where Shakes is in the book. Shakes is also in this universe, and Shakes being Percy's best friend, and Percy being a sometime agent for A.U.N.T. All right, fine, we'll throw them all in. And they're trying to, during the point where Tyler is actually in the cocoon and Stanley is nervous for his friend,
Hmm.
they're trying to calm Stanley down. So they actually take him camping. Does not go well. Um, there's a moment with Shakes, and something happens to Shakes. It's funny, but if something happens to Shakes, like, oh, I got to draw this. And
Yeah.
I did. So there's a funny picture of Shakes in the book. You'll see it. And it's like, that's got to go in. So it's most of the time in the early parts, I'm doing funny pictures. And it's like the serious stuff is like, how serious do I make it given the age of the reader?
Hmm.
Like, I won't do anything that's going to cause a trauma, I hope. But it's like, what can I get away with for, say, an 8-year-old?
Yeah.
It's like George Lucas, how much of Darth Vader's head can I show in that scene where the helmet comes down in Empire Strikes Back
Hmm.
without, causing
Hmm.
trouble? Um, and then the only limitation I have is the fact that I'm drawing at 4 inches by 9 inches, which then condenses down to the 3.5 by 7 to fit the book.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's mainly just so it's a transition series from graphic novels to full prose.
Yeah. And I love how thoughtful you are in that process too.
I try to be,
Yeah.
um, but there are moments of, oh God, I need 2 more images. What do I draw? What do I draw? What do I draw?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've mentioned the high rate of suicides among LGBTQ youth, and we've mentioned some of the themes of the book. If there's a message, anything that you hope readers take away from it, what would that be?
Find your family.
Yeah.
My family, um, my actual blood family was a the I joke that my family tree doesn't branch much
Hmm.
because I'm from the deep south,
Hmm.
and it had little support.
Yeah.
And that's not the image that some of my family tried to present.
Sure.
Um, but I found a family. A lot of it I only found recently in the comics community, ironically enough. Um, but that took 40 years to find that family,
Hmm.
but I finally found it. The depression has been easier to deal with of late. My wife and daughter obviously helped with that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but if if your actual family and your friends at the very least are not helping with whatever you're going through, and I don't just mean helping deal with it, but just if they are not at least willing to hold you or be there for you to at least take the pressure off,
Hmm.
then you need to find another group, another person,
Yeah.
another someone to hold your hand, hold your shoulder, hold you, and say, we've got this.
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't go through life alone. And I don't just mean, in a romantic aspect of wife, spouse, husband, whatever, but just, you know, it doesn't take much to look at the paper and realize right now the world sucks.
Hmm.
Uh, because it's, billionaires playing with everyone else's money and our lives. And we're just pawns at the moment. And, you know, until we can really organize and let them know, no, you're not understanding what majority really means.
Hmm.
Um, it's we need to people need to be able to find someone who gets them and cares about them honestly
Hmm.
and not in a transactional way.
Yeah.
And those are the people you need in your lives.
Agreed.
People who are willing to help you because they care about you, not because you do something for them. And I had to go through a lot of people like that to get where I am now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's hopefully what's in the book. I'm still learning to write, so it may be clumsy in there, but hopefully it's in there.
All
The one,
writers, I think, are always learning to write. I think that's just part of the process.
yeah. The one lesson I try to tell people every time is that it never stopped learning.
Hmm. Hmm.
And anytime you find someone who says, they don't need to learn anything anymore, walk away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Walk away. The one thing I am going to say that is, and I apologize for being obnoxious, but I did have a trans reader read this in advance,
Hmm.
and they
Hmm.
said, I wish I had this book when I was 12.
Hmm.
So I'm hoping that still stands with this book.
Great to share the book and to think about it that way and to make sure that it holds up in the way that you want it to.
I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful. And scene.
So if I am a listener or a reader out there, or both, hopefully both, where would I go to find information about this book, pre-order it, order it, as well as other books that you have out in the world?
um, Probably the best way to get you can get the book in a couple of different ways. The best way to sort of get the book that I would do is go through dfplinks.com.
Hmm.
I have a bookshop.org page, the link of which is a lot longer. But if you just click it towards the top of the DFP links page, it takes you to the bookshop page. And we use Bookshop because they give a discount. Amazon does not. Amazon is being weird with small press and self publishing,
Hmm.
but Bookshop gives a discount. And they also take a portion of each sale and give it back to mom and pop bookshops.
Awesome, awesome.
And since they've opened up, I want to say 2 years ago, they've given some $30 million to independent bookshops to keep them open in the era of Bezos, which I find fantastic.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so it's if you just go to bookshop.org, just search for Caterpillar Driver, it should pop right up, or J. Robert Dean's, it should pop right up. But if you also go to the link, there's I actually have earmarked specific bookshops. Um, and then if you just want to find out more about me, it's jrobertdeans.com, which is also most of my socials except for Facebook, which is JRD Cartoonist.
There it is.
I think that pretty much covers everything. And I'm most active on my Patreon, because Patreon is now free, unless you want to support at higher levels. But it's free, and it's a lot easier for me to do that than an email thing, because they want to now charge the email recipients
Mm-hmm.
as well as the senders, and that wasn't cool for me. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you go to patreon.com/jrobertdeans, you can sign up for free and get, like, my blog, which I'll have my heroes recap up shortly. And also that you'll find out about new books, new toys that my wife makes. You saw them at Heroes,
Yes, yes.
and other news and updates and things like that. So
Awesome,
that's a
awesome.
lot. Yeah. But pretty much, with the exception of Facebook, it's all J. Robert Deans.
Fantastic.
Technically, the J is silent.
The J is silent. The J is
Yeah,
silent. That's right. Silent J, Robert Deans, thank you so much for jumping in, joining for a second talk, and glad to have you back anytime,
I do appreciate that. Thank you for having me for this. And again, the book is available starting June 25th.
which is right around the corner. So we'll
Yeah,
be
it really is.
releasing this soon.
Yeah. Thank you again, Jason. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to
And
see you.
hopefully we'll have a chance to chat about everything and anything soon.
Yes, sounds great. Sounds great. Talk again soon.
Take care.